So one of the reasons why I moved to Orlando was specifically for school, but the other reason was to see early screenings for films. I was very excited to do that. And what better way to start my early screening process with Blair Witch. So Blair Witch is a sequel to 1999's Blair Witch Project and focuses on Heather's brother after footage from a tape is uploaded on YouTube. So he gets his group of friends together, which one of them is a film producer, and decides to figure out what happened to his sister while this documentary is taking place. So I've seen the Blair Witch Project and I really appreciate what it did to the found footage genre. When people saw that movie back in 1999, people actually thought it was real. Not a whole lot was happening in that movie, but just the content alone made it very unsettling. And a lot of people were wondering whether or not this was an actual thing that happened to these kids in these woods. So that's one of the many reasons why I like the Blair Witch Project, because if you go into it with no background knowledge whatsoever, you question whether or not it's real. How it looked and how it was presented to us actually made us feel like this happened. And also the acting was very believable as well. So that's what I really appreciated about the Blair Witch Project. However, with this sequel, we already know that it's a fake franchise. So that sense of scare and questioning as to whether or not it's real or not is gone. But it still is able to maintain some scares, and I appreciated it for what it was. The main word that I really thought when seeing this film was the word fine. This movie is fine. I knew what it was going to be going in, I expected all of this, and I got what I got, and I really liked the movie. But if I was approaching this from a really professional film critic level, I'd say, yeah, it's just fine. It's just that sense of awe whether or not the film is real or not is gone. It's not there anymore. It's just a scary movie. It's a scary found footage film. Which I didn't mind because at the same time, not a whole lot of things happened in the Blair Witch Project. There was only that unsettling mood that really compelled you into that film. Whereas in this film, which was one of the many things that I really appreciate about this film, was that there's more happening in this documentary style movie. I also like the new kind of tricks that they brought into this film regarding filming. It's modern day, so obviously they're gonna be using DSLR cameras, HD cameras. They even brought in these headset cameras where we're seeing the characters from their first person point of view, and I really enjoyed that. And they also used a drone in this film, which at first glance I was like, oh god, they're using the drone. Like in 2015's Poltergeist, you know, I just didn't really like the drone being in that movie because obviously they were just using it to sell drones. But in this film, it totally makes sense because they can use the drone to go up high and view the woods from a sky point of view. So they really utilized the usage of the drone. However, one of the things that I didn't really like about this film, which goes back to me saying that this is a modern take on Blair Witch, is that it's modern. It tends to use modern day gimmicks that we've seen in found footage films thus far and just places them into this particular film. We've been seeing a lot of advertisements saying like, oh, this is a new beginning for horror. Like, no, it's not a new beginning of horror. We've seen this before. It's done well, but it's not a new beginning of horror. And because the film takes that modern style, there's a couple of cliches that happen in this film. Like for example, like if there was a character who was filming these trees or looking around, and if they do like a total 90-degree turn, there'll be like a random character standing right there, maybe like a friend of theirs. Like, we've seen that before. But in this film, when they did that, where there was like a random person standing right there would be like a loud boom. There'd be like this loud distortion that didn't feel like it needed to be there. It was just like a random jump scare, and it just felt unnecessary and inappropriate sometimes. And that's another thing that I really didn't care about this movie, is that the movie is so reliant on sound in order to scare its audience. And at times it did work, but at other times it just felt like a random jump scare. Going back to the original Blair Witch Project, there was no music in that film whatsoever, and there's not really music in this film, but there's kind of like distortion sound effects that kind of bring a certain tone to the film. But in Blair Witch Project, you didn't need sounds or anything like that. It was already scary on its own. Whereas in this film, they were scared like, okay, like they already know it's fake. They added in distortion sounds and things like that in order to scare its audience. One of the things I did really enjoy about this film was that we learned more about what this specific wooded area could do to people who were traveling into it. There's a concept of if you go into these Blair Witch woods, it changes reality and time and things like that, which was an idea that was presented into Blair Witch 2, but people decided to ignore that because Blair Witch 2 wasn't really good. And people were questioning whether or not that was a certain theme in Blair Witch 1 because of that, but it was now confirmed in this new movie that that is a total theme, and I actually really enjoyed that portion. I enjoyed the new added information as to what these woods can do to you as far as time and reality goes, and I feel as though it added on to Blair Witch Project as well. So yes guys, I enjoyed the movie. I will admit, as a critic, there are problems with this movie, but I enjoyed it a lot. It doesn't change my opinion of Blair Witch Project whatsoever. I think it adds on to the film just a little bit. There's a couple cliches here and there, but I got what I expected, and I enjoyed my time at the movie theater. I would recommend this film to anyone who's a fan of the Blair Witch Project. And one more thing I have to say, without going into spoilers. This film does something that the first Blair Witch Project didn't do, which I really thought it should have done, but it didn't. This film does that. And if you guys know what I'm talking about, yeah, go see this movie if you want to see that. So yes, guys, that was my review of Blair Witch. Comment down below what you thought of this movie if you've seen it yet. Like the video, share it, and please subscribe to PixelTalk if you haven't yet for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and gaming content. Also, if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can by clicking this banner right here. It'll take you to my Patreon page, and all I ask for is $1. Thank you guys so much. I am Corbin Stuckey, and this is PixelTalk.